Okay, so this is another episode of Steve Shive's comment section is closed, but I want to make a comment. So this is his video, Your Fandom, Your Problem, and it's about like when something comes out within a franchise and people don't like it, and some of those people get a bit crazy on the internet. Let's start here.
A particular subset of the fan base that has taken the negative reception of Section 31 as a big bloody hunk of red meat. And it has led to some extremely vitriolic reactions to Section 31, the movie, and also to some of the people who made it. And
But this is like as old as the internet. Like, I guess maybe the censorship on the internet recently is like kind of made Steve a bit soft, or he's forgotten what it used to be like. Like, it used to be absolutely shocking what people would say, and it would happen in the forums before YouTube, and in YouTube, when YouTube came, you'd like get the worst hate comments. It was just standard. You'd even, if you had like a video of a kitten playing with a ball of wool, you'd get some pretty fucking terrible comments.
that brings me to this post that I saw yesterday on Blue Sky by my friend and fellow Star Trek themed YouTuber Sean Ferrick, which said, and by the way, Sean is with Trek Culture, and Sean is one of the good ones. The whole
Oh,
gang.
we should probably read that for context. Hang on. It's about here, right?
Star Trek themed YouTuber Sean Ferrick, which said, and by the way, Sean.
I'll give you an idea where we're at. I get hate pretty much all the time for not calling for Cusman's job. I'm used to it at this stage. But what I won't and will never tolerate are the death threats against him. I've had to delete them from the comments. I fucked that up, but you know what I mean.
Sean is with Trek Culture, and Sean is one of the good ones. The whole gang over there at Trek Culture are okay in my book, and Sean in particular is an absolute prince and is incredible.
I just want to say, like, no homo, but I do like Steve Shive's lighting here. I normally like hate the garish or garish or whatever background lighting YouTubers do, but he's done it like really nice here with like the blue in the background, and it's like not overpowering, and the kind of yellow in the front with him. It looks really good.
Incredibly funny and clever and great on camera, and I just have boundless appreciation and admiration for him. Good on you, Sean.
Oh, hang on, we missed a little bit of a compliment there. Let's go back to it right here.
Vitriolic reactions to Section 31, the movie, and also to some of the people who made it. And that brings me to this post that I saw yesterday on Blue Sky by my friend and fellow Star Trek themed YouTuber Sean Ferrick, which said, and by the way, Sean is with Trek Culture, and Sean is one of the good ones. The whole gang over there at Trek Culture are okay in my book, and Sean in particular is an absolute prince and is incredibly funny and clever and great on camera, and I just have boundless appreciation and admiration for him. Good on you, Sean, just in general. And Sean had this to say.
Yeah, that I'm a little bit like Steve Shives when I like someone or what they're doing. I can kind of not so much over compliment them, but go a little bit too far. Sorry, but I've kind of learned that sort of makes people feel a bit uncomfortable and kind of makes me look a bit dumb. I'm not saying that it makes Steve look dumb, but maybe one day he might reassess that.
About some of these vitriolic responses that he has seen in his videos related to Star Trek. And this has been sort of kicked off by the negative reaction to the Section 31 movie. Sean says, I'll give you an idea where we're at. I get hate pretty much all the time for not calling for Kurtzman's job. I'm used to it at this stage. But what I won't and will never.
Yeah, I look pretty dumb now for reading this tweet out now that Steve's doing it.
Never tolerate are the death threats against him I've had to delete from the comments. I don't know Alex Kurtzman, but I've been called every name under the sun just for interviewing him for 5 minutes. People have commented.
So let's just go back a second. He said like,
Man's job. I'm used to it at this stage. But what I won't and will never tolerate are the death threats against him I've had to delete from the comments.
right, now that's my issue. It's kind of like, you know how in the last 10 years, everyone's been calling people Austrian painters? No, fuck it. They've been calling them like Nazis when they're not Nazis. Like they've been taking it too far. Like this person's like a little bit right wing or something. Oh, he's a Nazi. Or they've been saying this person's literally Hitler. And what that's done is it's completely devalued, like in the kind of boy crying wolf kind of way, where like if you call everyone a Nazi, what do you call actual Nazis? Like super ultra Nazis? What happens is if you call everyone a Nazi, when you actually someone is actually a Nazi, and you say, "Oh, this person's a Nazi," everyone's just going to think, "Nah, they're probably not. They're probably just like a little bit right wing." If you say, oh, "This guy's literally Hitler," to everybody who doesn't agree with you, or is a little bit right wing, or is a little bit sketchy, when it is someone who's actually fully hardcore, up and coming Nazi leader or something, no one's going to take it seriously. It's like it loses its power. No one takes it seriously anymore. And I think this is a thing where, which is happening with, like, on this situation, saying death threats. I'd like to read those death threats. Like, is it just KYS, you know? Is it stupid things like, God, this was this whatever TV series or film was like so bad, like I wish someone would kill him so he doesn't do it again or something, which is just like someone being edgy on the internet, someone just like expressing their frustration. It's not a death threat. Or were these real death threats? Like a real death threat would say, let's think, we'll have to think of someone who's already gone. Let's say someone says, writes a letter to Mark Twain and says, I read your book, I'm disgusted by it, I'm going to come and kill you before you write another book. That's a death threat. If someone says, writes a letter to Mark Twain and says, your book was terrible, you should kill yourself, or I hope you die in a fire because your books are so bad. That's not a death threat. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're very different things. Like, a death threat is something which is a threat that puts a person in, like, where they perceive danger. You know, you can go to the police for that kind of shit. Like, an actual death threat, you can go to the police and go, someone's giving me a death threat. Were these death threats, or were these death threats, you know?
I don't know Alex Kurtzman, but I've been called every name under the sun just for interviewing him for 5 minutes. People have commented on our channel calling for him to be thrown from a tall building. And these comments were getting likes.
Yeah, so, like, hang on. That was an example there, hang on.
This stage. But what I won't and will never tolerate are the death threats against him.
So we've got a death threat coming up, and it's something about he should be thrown from a building or something.
I've been called every name under the sun just for interviewing him for 5 minutes. People have commented on our channel calling for him to be thrown from a tall building. And
right, that's not a death threat. That's just like someone expressing their frustration in an edgy and probably humorous way. Like, you might not find it funny. It might not come across as funny, but if you, like, people are calling for someone to be thrown from a tall building for, like, a TV series that they wrote or produced, that's not a death threat. And saying it is just dilutes the real death threats. If everyone's saying this is a death threat, and then someone gets a real death threat, and they say, well, fuck, I got this death threat, everyone's going to think, oh no, it's just someone being oversensitive. And that's what this is. This is being oversensitive. Sure, it's not nice to have people, I think, joking or even, like, saying, yeah, like, this guy should be thrown from a tall building, right? Like, that's just an expression. You know what I mean? Like, no one's actually going to throw him from a tall building. No one's saying a threat is I will throw you from a tall building, or like we know where you live, we're gonna throw you off this tall building or something. That's a threat. This is not a threat. Like Steve here and his Trekkie friend are making a mockery of actual death threats. Just like people made a mockery of the word Nazi and the word Hitler.
These comments were getting likes. I think most of you know me. I'll chat, I'll engage, and we can happily disagree.
Like fuck, man. Like back in the day in forums, people would say like absolute terrible shit and to get liked or whatever, you know. And the same even on Facebook, and especially YouTube. Like some of the comments would be like, actually, they are still are. If you look, they're just a little bit harder to find. People will say like crazy shit, and people will like it, but it doesn't mean it's a threat or it's got any real substance to it.
About anything in Star Trek. It's one of the genuine joys of doing this. I've been called a shill often as I don't rage bait. I'm used to that now if you're trying to get a rise out of me. But death threats to anyone for any.
Wait, is it real death threats? Like, I'm not saying it isn't them, but like just give us an example of one so we can take it seriously. Because at this point in time, when people say I've had death threats or something, and then when you find out what they are, it's the stupid shit which isn't actually death threats. If these are real death threats, the only thing to do is go straight to the police and sort it out, and maybe actually like recreate it. You know, you can change the names or something, and show us what it's like. But at the moment, all I'm thinking is some internet troll person's just said, "Oh, this series is so stupid. This guy should be thrown off a building," and everyone's going, "Oh, yeah, that's funny. Like, it's not a death threat." I mean, I apologize if there is actual real death threats in this space he's talking about, but at the moment, I need to see like receipts. You know, like someone like say Vegan Gains, for instance. He said he's had death threats, and I believe him because he's not stupid. He won't just put something stupid as a death threat. I think he's actually had some real ones. You know, I don't think at the moment, unless I'm proven otherwise, I don't think this guy has had real death threats. If he's using the example of this guy should be thrown from a tall building as a death threat, which is just basically like someone expressing their frustration in what they see as a comedic way.
Reason because you don't like the Star Trek they make? No. Dislike the man's work or direction or ideas to your heart's content. That's entirely up to you. But what are we as a community if instead of discussing what we like, dislike, or want to see in the future, we're seeing people calling for the murder of a man?
They're not calling for the murder of a man. They're saying he should be thrown from a tall building. It's like an expression. They're not saying he should actually be killed. And if you can't see that, this is what worries me about some people. Like, does Steve, the stuff he comes out with, does he not realize this? Or does he realize this and he's just trying to like agitate his audience, you know? And I'll be honest, like a couple of silly words like what he's talking about, kind of nothing compared to him saying to his followers that they shouldn't eat Thanksgiving with their family who voted for Trump. I guess it's because he's literally Hitler, right?
And others thinking it's funny. And I weighed in and shared my own thoughts on the matter. And basically, I agree with.
I'm not saying like that particular one is funny. It might be funny to some people, but there has been some equal things like that which are actually kind of funny, where someone says something absolutely terrible about somebody for something kind of trivial. Like, for instance, the ending of Lost. Some of those writers got some pretty harsh bad taste jokes made about them and stuff, which kind of were funny.
Sean, it's ridiculous. And my thread on the subject ends with the statement of, if you find yourself so attached to Star Trek or to any other property, Star Wars, a particular superhero franchise,
or like the Democratic Party,
any show, any movie, whatever it is, if you find yourself so attached to it, that you take it personally when that franchise produces a project that you don't like.
There will be like a 0.001% of fans who are like crazy in their head and do mean crazy shit that they say. But this, I don't think, is what they're talking about. I think it's just people being a bit edgy and saying, like, oh, I hope this guy dies in a fire, like, because it was so terrible. Something like that. Like, maybe it's not funny, but it's not a death threat, and it's not what he's making it out to be. Like, that person who's written that doesn't actually think that this person should die in a fire or this person should be thrown off a building. It's like, it's going to an absurd level to express your frustration.
To the point that you're willing to bully and harass and threaten the people who made that thing you don't like, or also bully, harass, and threaten other fans who maybe did like it more than you do. If you've gotten to that point, it is time to...
Right, and I don't think like the people he's referring to have gotten to that point. Yeah, they take it very passionately or whatever. It's a Star Trek I think he's talking about. And they're going to write some nasty things about the writers or the producers or something. But they're not going to the level which I think Steve Shives has kind of at least like quietly supported of doxing people. Not saying he's not saying he's done it, but it's happened. And cancelling people from their jobs, cancelling people from society, cancelling people, deplatforming people, which is actually like a serious real world thing that people do. That's like really bad, I think. And this kind of like people just writing edgy, maybe distasteful stuff is not even in the, it's not even like in the same ballpark, you know. And he can't seriously think that these are death threats. Not saying that aren't death threats, but show us the death threats. You know, show us them.
Detach yourself from this thing that you are attached to, because you are overly attached to it. And I want to take this video to...
Yeah, like I think overly attached is when you get attached to an ideology. Could be veganism, could be you're super left wing, could be like trans movement, could be feminism, could be right wing people, could be men's rights, whatever. It's when you start getting too crazy, is when you start like affecting people's real lives by like cancelling them, you know, getting them kicked off platforms, getting the jobs taken away. That's like when it is actually crazy.
Respond to one of the more common responses to what I just said. Because I've said this kind of thing before. Like, if you like Star Trek or Star Wars or whatever so much that you actually get mad at the people who made it when they make part of it that you don't like, then you're overly attached and you need to back off. You need to gain some perspective.
If you get nasty.
Whenever I say that, invariably, there are people who comment and say, but Steve, you don't understand. For some of us, Star Trek is all we have. For some of us, Star Wars is all we have.
No, I think this is where he's drifting on into fantasy land, because it's just already built on like the false premise that these people are being super serious when they think that someone should like be thrown off a building, and that even saying that is a death threat, which is not. And now he's going off into, I think, more fantasy land. But I would recommend Steve Shives' videos if you love Star Trek, which I do. Like, for me, it's Star Trek: The Next Generation. I've watched all 181 episodes chronologically twice. That's like going right from the start to the end, right from the start to the end. And I've watched like many favorite episodes, way more than that. And Steve Shives is the best guy when it comes to like talking about those episodes. But when he gets on his political stuff, it's just like, fucking Jesus, man. And he will delete any comment that is not like 100% on board with his, you know, spiraling out of control, fanatical outlook.